Remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, December the 4th, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop. Oops, and it should go to that one. And we lost John's sound. How did we lose John's sound?
There we go.
Oh, no.
There we go.
I'm John Richardson, and on tonight's show, we talk with Tom Knighton of BearingArms.com about a former FBI agent pleading guilty to gun charges.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about a West Virginia judge ruling the laws banning 18 to 20-year-old adults from purchasing handguns and ammunition are unconstitutional.
And if I'm supposed to be reading show notes, I have none.
All right.
She's Amanda Suffolkul, and we're going to talk about an Ohio court shutting down the city of Columbus's efforts to advance gun control in that city. And I'm Carrie Ann O'Clair. No.
I'm Carrie Ann. Oh, God. And in one of our defensive gun use stories, when an armed robber attempted to rob Happy Days grocery store in Philadelphia, it turned out not to be so happy or him. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 686 of the Polite Society Podcast starts right now. All right, it is Monday night. It is just after 7 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. Means it's time for another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. As I usually do, we're going to go around to all of the hosts here, and we're going to see what everybody's been up to since the last time they've been on the air is. John, you're up first this week. What's been up with you lately?
Well, I missed a few weeks as we were out of town on family trips, one with Barb's siblings and the other at Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, in that last trip, my granddaughter gave me a cold, which I'm almost over. I apologize in advance if I start coughing. On the first trip, I got to do something I've never done before. Go up in a small plane, single engine, and take the controls for a few minutes. You can see pictures and video of it on my blog. And I'm not going to start pilot training, but would love to go up again. Amanda?
Well, I just returned home from Louisiana, where I was at the Gresham's Range Ready, with Robin Sandoval and Lori Blackwell, from two trainers from across the country. And we went to take a low light, no light firearms class with firearms trainer Chris Sereno. I'm going to recommend to everybody that if you have not taken a low light class, you should do so. And if you've got an opportunity to train in a shoot house, again, do so. So those are the things that I just got done doing. And now I'm sitting and I'm scheduling fashion shows for the 2024, anywhere from Florida to Alaska. And there's so much more stuff that's coming up this year. It's going to be amazing. And I'm so sad that I'm not going to be able to be talking to all y'all about it.
All right.
So who's next? Carrie Ann.
Carrie Ann.
So I just got done testifying last week on November 28th. I was on the panel with Gun Owners Action League Gold. We have a lot of things going on in Massachusetts right now that is really a little upsetting, and Charlie can vouch for that. I have been doing a lot of classes with my own business, ways to be empowered. And AWA, which is Armed Women of America, is in full force. I've had a lot of more women contact me wanting to be responsible for with their firearms and continue their education. And we are trying to get ready for the next bill. It just passed H 4139, just passed through the House. So the Senate's going to grab it. We think they're going to do their own rendition. So we're getting revved up and ready for that. So it's been busy.
All right, Charlie.
You're next.
All right. So I had a class over the weekend, and 3 of the 4 students in the class were under 22 years old. So that was pretty cool to see that young people are getting their licenses to carry. I did a show I had a show come out last week with Will Workman from Workman Protection. He is he's in West Virginia, so it was cool to knock out a show in West Virginia. Paul, you got some talking to do. Talk to us.
I do. Well, and I put up Dana's comment. He's already checked in, and I let it slip on social media. And I'll go ahead and put me up on the screen here. How do I put this? I've been thinking about this for a very long time. Susan and I have been talking about it for several days. It is time to put the show on hiatus. I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag early in the show, get it out of the way. And why did my sign turn off? I am on the air. I don't know. Anyway, just all kinds of interesting things happening tonight. But as all of you know, I no longer am associated with Second Amendment Foundation, and I've taken a regular job, a regular person job. Not that I didn't have one before, but the job I took and am working now, I work overnights. And it is really, really, really hard to keep the Polite Society podcast and 3 episodes of Polite Society News in the air and work a regular overnight job. To the point where I'm getting so stressed that I'm worried about my health. With the health scare I had a few years ago, I don't want to push things. Susan and I discussed it, and for at least a while, my head says at least 6 months. We're going to be putting the show on hiatus. I'm gonna stay on the sidelines. I'll check in on social media from time to time, but something's got to give for right now. It's time. And one more thing is, and I wanted to bring this up too, the show, when I switched from just doing shows to working a full-time job and doing shows, it kind of took a lot of the fun out of it. And we'll see when it becomes fun again, I'll start doing it on a regular basis. But I'm thinking this is just it's time for a break. My head says 6 months. My heart doesn't want to do it at all, but we'll see what happens. So that's kind of what's going on with me. I want to get comment in here from CNT. He says, outstanding panel for tonight. I agree. The only one that isn't here that I wish is Rob Morse. Rob has been with me for the longest of anybody, and that is on the air right now. And I really wish Rob could have made it tonight. He's underwater somewhere. So, yeah. And hey, you know what? I want to get... Let me get a couple of comments more in here real quick, and I thought this might happen. This lady named Susan R. Lathrop. And it sounds familiar. Anyway, if something big happens or maybe a special edition show, you guys can't get rid of us that easily, and we'll be posting links to news stories. Absolutely. If you are watching us on the Polite Society Podcast Facebook page, that's not going away. I will daily when I do my perusal of news stories, which I don't plan on stopping doing. If I see a news story you need to be aware of, I'll pop it up. You won't get my analysis, or at least not as much, but you'll still be informed. Lot of wow. Get that one up there. Homestead Reboot. That's Kevin Sona, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Don't Make Me Cry. And somebody on Facebook, Restreambot, This Is Why We Like Susan. And George Geller, You're Making the Right Decision, Paul. Take care of your health. All right, enough about me. The show has never, ever, ever been about me. I was able to do a solo show for all of a couple months, and then I realized that I needed help, and I started bringing people on board. And it's always been about a team, not about me. So let's do this. We're going to step aside to break. When we come back, we have patiently waiting for us. And I got to say, Tom Knighton patiently waits for nobody, but he's patiently waiting for us. We're going to be talking with Tom about some of the articles he's written recently, and especially about that story about the FBI, former FBI agent, pleading guilty to gun charges. Hang on, everybody. We're going to hear from ACLDN. We'll be back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are back. This is the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast. Joining us tonight, as you can see in the bottom right of your screen, Tom Knighton from Bearing Arms. And before we get to Tom's interview, I've got to get this in real quick. We have a comment from somebody on Facebook. There won't be a Christmas party. Yes, there will. Tom's hosting it at his house. He let me know on the break that he's going to have everybody over for a Christmas party at his house. And by the way, all the alcohol is on Tom. So.
Yeah, but that just means I'll be wearing it.
All right. Tom, and thank you, Tom, for coming on short notice. Tom didn't know he was going to be a guest tonight until this afternoon. And I was thinking, who do I have fun with?
Not the first time that's happened either.
Yeah. Who do I have fun with when they're a guest on the show? And my first thought was Tom. Of course, and I got to finish up with my regular introduction with Tom. If you're over at Bearing Arms and you're reading a story and you think, boy, this story's got a lot of attitude, I will guarantee you Tom's the one that wrote that story. Tom, only the police and military should have firearms. Everybody else doesn't. Only the police and only military, and maybe not the police, maybe just the FBI, because the FBI is like the super police. Right. And here we have this story that I caught from you that hit today. Former FBI agent pleads guilty to gun charges. What's up here, man?
Oh, well, this special agent decided that he would go into the FBI lockup and take out a couple of guns, take them home, sold one to a buddy, kept one for himself, and apparently allegedly destroyed one. I don't buy that one. But these were, guns that were let's see, the one that he kept was a sawed-off shotgun, basically an NFA item that you and I can't, buy without special licensing. And he just walked out with one. Like I said, he sold one to a buddy, and it was, don't tell anyone where you got this from. Obviously, this is the kind of thing that even if every gun law in America disappeared tomorrow, guns that are in police custody don't get to walk out with FBI agents. They don't get to take those guns home with them just because. And yet, here we are. It's kind of special.
Yeah,
that's what the special and special agent means, apparently.
Well, I was wondering if the special and special agent in his case might be that he rides a short bus to work.
A short.
That's the exact kind of special. Yeah,
it matches his shotgun.
All right, John, you're up in show notes with a comment.
Yeah, unfortunately, this doesn't seem the first time that a special agent from the FBI has been brought up on gun charges. A few years ago, there was a guy down in El Paso that was basically dealing without a license, and they got him for, selling over $100,000 worth of guns. He bought 51 and sold, or he bought 54 and sold 51. Yeah, basically as a dealer without an FFL. Also an FBI special agent. He got 2 years probation.
I think it's important to remember that, the FBI, with a lot of people, like any other organization, you're going to have some good people, you're going to have some bad people. But what gets me is there's a lot of people who will look at, we got to have gun control laws, but we're going to put this carve out for law enforcement because they can be trusted. They're different. They're different than the regular folks. They're different from you and me. And I on one hand, I'm the son of a cop, and I get where police have concerns. But I've gotten death threats, and I've never worn a badge. Why do they get exemptions when someone like you or I don't? Especially when it's clear that they can be just as much of a criminal as anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
What really gets me about this is that it is the FBI, and we think of them as very special. I have a first cousin who is probably one of the first female special agents who's retired now. My mother worked for the FBI during World War II as a cryptanalyst. I still have the letter telling her she was promoted and signed by J. Edgar Hoover with his actual signature. And
cool.
They were special. They were considered special. And to see them do something ordinary or reprehensible, it's just not right. But you're right. You said it. There's good people and there's bad people in any organization.
Amanda, you look like you have a question or a comment.
Well, the interesting part is that with the Supreme Court and Bruin decision, we're looking for people that have standing on things to take down the NFA, to take the F out of get the F out of the ATF, right? That kind of a thing. So does that mean that this FBI agent can potentially become the Heller of the next level of things to clear all the insides out of the box that is the NFA? Because 1791 history, text, and tradition. 1934 is a different year. So what do you think, Tom?
That's actually a good point, because if we can have someone like Zaki Rahimi as a challenge, why not have a former FBI agent? He'd still do time because these are basically, he stole guns from the FBI. But one of the charges is an NFA charge. Hey, he could, really make the case. That charge shouldn't be there because, history, text, and tradition. It's actually a good point.
Let me get to some comments here real quick. We've been down this road before. This is Warsaw Patriot. Operation Fast and Furious and the feds are always getting a bad rep, seems like. Well, they kind of are, but they're kind of earning it. Also, Warsaw Patriot here. FBI want Brandon's version of them? Who are you, the FIB or the FIB? And of course,
ATF.
Alcohol, tobacco, and fix-ups. So, all right. Let's see here.
Okay. I just want to say that ATF should be a convenience store.
Yes, especially now. Don't shortchange it. BATFE.
Explosives.
Yes, very much so.
That should be a convenience store. It'd be my favorite store.
I want a T-shirt that says BATFE, get the F out of here, right? Because it's based on Bruin.
I like it. I like it.
Where's Yehuda? Doesn't he have one of these already?
I don't know.
All right.
Check his website tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, next story I wanted to talk to you about, if I could, Tom. You and John wrote on this week. Remington is finally getting the F out of New York, and closing down all operations. They were doing some rifles and shotguns in New York still, but looks like everything is going to Georgia. You want to tell us about that, man?
Yeah, it's they'd already announced in 2021, I think. They were, moving their headquarters down here to Georgia, which great for us. But they were keeping that plan in operation. It's been in operation since like 1816 or something, well before the Civil War. And then they announced they're shutting it down. And my only question is, what took them so long to leave a state that hates them?
Yeah. John, now you wrote about this as well. Is there any part of Remington that's staying behind in New York now?
Not that I can see.
So I believe
it looks like everything's out.
Yeah, I believe that in the beginning they said that they were going to do a slow walk in the move to try to be respectful to the employees who had given their entire lives and careers to working for the company. Because it's really tough when you're trying to move a plant like this, because you've got people, as much as you want to say, well, we've got jobs in Georgia and you can come down, or Tennessee, or wherever a plant moves to, and you're there. People aren't as portable as companies are. And so people, because their kids are in school or their grandkids are there or their parents are near or whatever, there are a wide variety of things that keep someone tied to a community that may not be anything about their politics. And so this is really a sad day for some people, because their company up and left them. That's sort of why it took them so long, I really think, because it's a hard decision to make when you're making an impact on everybody's life when you make that decision.
And when you've been someplace 200 years, there's always going to be some hesitancy, even without that. Like 200 years in same place, you just kind of feel like, or at least me, I don't really want to just break a tradition like that. You never break the streak on purpose. And so I could kind of get that's some hesitancy with that too. But on the same token, New York has declared war on the Second Amendment. They're a company that feeds into the Second Amendment. It's it put them in a bad spot. Really did.
Yeah, how many times are you supposed to get slapped in the face before you're saying, okay, this is enough. Yeah. I have to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They had no
you can't
choice.
be Kevin Bacon. You can't be Kevin Bacon in Animal House with the whole "Thank you, sir. May I have another?"
Yeah.
When Smith and Wesson made the announcement that they were moving down to Tennessee, I remember reading a couple articles about out in the Springfield area where people were saying that, oh, this is all political, and I'm like, yeah, it's political. Massachusetts doesn't want the guns that they make here. Why should they stay here? They should get up and leave.
Yeah. You dump take a dump, basically take a dump on an entire industry that's predicated on supplying the means for a basic civil liberty. And then when they go, okay, well, we're going to go someplace that doesn't hate us, and you're like, well, yeah, it's all political. Well, yeah, and you made it so.
I mean, and if you look at the plan itself, it's old, it's outdated. Down in Georgia and LaGrange, they have CNC machines. And I know there's an argument about keeping, you're losing all those machinists. But when you look at modern CNC machines, modern other machinery, the tolerances are so good that the need for hand fitting really isn't there anymore.
Want to get to
And
a
it's going
couple
to improve
comments.
quality control.
Want to get to a couple comments here real quick. Homestead Reboot, again, that's Kevin Sona. It says, still waiting for Carr to leave Mass. I'm assuming that's Massachusetts. And you may be waiting a while for that one. Maybe not, but
They just bought property in Tennessee.
yeah. Barry Anderson on the Facebook side said, and we've gone to this one, this is not a new conversation. Does that mean the gun owners should also up and leave? Charlie, since we seem to be hated by the politicians. Charlie, that one's pointed at you, dude.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. Like Amanda said, you have to realize, do you have family here? What kind of roots do you have here? Yeah, if a little angel came down and pranked her wand on my life, yeah, I think I'd move. I don't think I'd move. I would move.
All right.
But I think I think that the thing you've got to do though is you've got to urge folks who are 2A advocates to stay. I mean, we were talking to a couple months ago when Goal had their event in Mass, and I was looking for a topic to talk about, and I settled on why don't you stay? Because we really do need good people to fight in these states, because otherwise we'll just get crowded into a tighter and tighter space, and more people will think that they're winning, and more states will turn into this anti-gun legislative New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California thing if people aren't there digging in and pushing back.
Right. I agree with you, Amanda. I really do, because I just had this conversation with somebody earlier today, because I think a lot of people, especially right now in Massachusetts, they say to me, why vote? Why should I go to a hearing? Why should I testify? It's not going to make any difference. And I said to them, it is. You will make a difference. You are going to make a difference. If we all have that same mentality, we're going to fold up and we're going to die. We cannot stop. We have to go forward, be strong, be brave, and use our voices.
I every time this comes up, I'm reminded back when, this has been a few years ago, we were doing a remote broadcast from a local store here, ABN Army Surplus, and you might have even been on with me, John. This is just about the time you started, but we were doing live broadcasts, and we were all on Google Plus Hangouts, which hasn't been around for a couple of years, but we had a comment that come in off of Google Plus that I absolutely loved, and I remember to this day. We were talking about this. I brought up, look, there's a lot of free states. There's a lot of states that are looking for people to come in. Free states generally have good economies, need people to work. You know, South Dakota specifically is begging for people to come work for us, with us. Come here. And this guy from New York said, look, I was a U.S. Army Ranger. We're not used to running and hiding. I've never retreated in my professional life. I don't feel like retreating now. And I loved that comment. That comment has stuck with me forever. Yeah, we also need people that are going to stay and fight, just like Amanda said.
Yep.
So
don't give up on us. Don't give up on the rest of us that decide to stay. We need you.
And one more, and then we got to head to break. Gun websites. And by the way, hey, gun websites, I seen you comment 13 minutes before we went live. Gun websites was there giving us a thumbs up, commenting. Thank you, gun websites. He says, you can't move away from tyranny to defeat it. You absolutely can't. All right, we are going to step aside to break. When we come back, we've got one more segment with Tom Knight, and as long as he doesn't say to heck with it and go away from us. We'll be right back, folks, right after we hear from the good people at JPFO. JPFO. We'll get to Complete Combat the next break. We'll be right back right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Will Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
All right, we are back. This is our second segment with Tom Knighton of Bearing Arms, another interview segment of the Polite Society podcast. And Tom, the next story I wanted to talk to you about, this actually hit late last week, but we haven't been on the air in a week. And I wanted a town in Michigan has formed a militia to resist Gretchen Whitmer's gun control laws. I love this story. Can you give us a little bit of background on this one, man?
Yeah, it's a town that basically, it's described as a township. I don't really know what the differentiation officially is in Michigan. But they decided they were going to be a Second Amendment sanctuary. But realistically, they understood that you could declare yourself a sanctuary if you want. You got to have some teeth. So they basically said, all right, we're creating a militia. Be part of the militia. You just have to basically tell someone you're part of the militia. It's like the easiest way to join. I mean, my enlistment had been that simple. It would have been great. But no, this is much easier. And the idea is that if Whitmer tries to push it and say, nope, you are going to enforce gun laws whether you want to or not, you're going to have a number of people there saying, bring it on.
You know, and this goes right into the Whitmer's thing. The National Guard should have guns. That's the Second Amendment. The Army should have guns. That's Second Amendment. Of course, my security guards should have guns. But it says a well-regulated militia. And even according to the anti-gunners definition, creating a militia, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So,
right. If when you take that, a lot of, anti-gunners like to focus on that introductory clause there. And I really want to see them try to make that same claim with these people, because this is an official local militia. This is essentially an entity created by an act of a governmental body. It sounds to me like this should click everything they would want.
Amanda, go.
I think that the one question that needs to be asked to this group is, at least in Ohio, townships are the rural. So a county is modularized, and there's squares, and some of them you've got villages, some of them you've got cities or towns, and then there's the rest of us, and the rest of us it's gridded out, and they're townships. So the question becomes is who polices that area. In Ohio, that is the county sheriff. So there's city police, there's town police, and then the county is the guy who runs each one of the townships. So it'd be interesting to talk to the county sheriff that oversees that township to see what their statement is. In my little rural burg, my sheriff says that if the government gets out of control, he will deputize us all. So
now that works too. NRA board member Amanda Suffolk, soon to be, we'll have to call her Deputy Suffolk.
He's like, when it goes like this, anybody who wants to, we'll deputize. I'm like,
I wish my county sheriff would.
There is that. I mean, Ohio also has an official and an unofficial militia, and so it's in the Ohio Revised Code. And so my answer always is when they start talking about that, it's like, okay, so if there's an unofficial militia that says that we need to be at the ready for the state should they need us, you just tell me what caliber gun I need to have to match the ammo that you're going to supply me, and I'll be all good about that.
I'm going to put this comment up without comment. Just going to leave that right there.
I said cities. Cities. I do not have a speech impediment. I do not care what my phone says when I do voice to text.
Now we know why it's C and T. It's because it gets us mixed up.
And Sandhills Media says, hashtag, I want to be like Deputy Suffolk.
New shirt.
Yeah.
New shirt. Absolutely. Oh. Dear God.
All right. And one more story, Tom, I wanted to talk to you about. This is unfortunate. You wrote about this story. Florida seeks to punish irresponsible shooters. I kind of agree with you. I wish this weren't needed, but it almost seems like in cases it is. Can you tell us a little bit about the background on this story?
Yeah, a woman was working on her barn and on her property, working with her horse, and was struck by a stray bullet. It luckily did not have enough energy to do any major damage. It was really the article describes it as a graze, but it was still fired from someone else's property, crossed the property lines, and struck her. Now I think we all know that all the different ways that could have gone very differently. But apparently she went and tried to talk to the people. It was a nursery some people were shooting, at, and, they were very, very belligerent to her, not even oh my God, I'm so sorry. We'll see to it that never happens again. And what they're now looking at potentially doing is creating a law where you face punishment if your round leaves your property. You can fire in your yard if, within, certain framework, I guess. But, if that bullet leaves your property, and presumably does something to attract attention to the fact that it left your property, you're facing punishment. Now, if I remember right, it's, like Paul said, I wrote about this about a week ago, and I read a lot of stuff. But I want to say it was looking at like a year in prison and a potential fine. But I don't like the idea of having a law to regulate this, but on the same token, if your round leaves your property and strikes someone else, you could sit here all day long and say, well, the odds of that are slim. Yeah, but slim isn't zero.
You're absolutely
Get a berm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You're shoot in the backyard. Build a berm.
It's
not rocket science.
See if I can find it here while I'm thinking, and I don't see it. So, we're just gonna go without it. I was looking for my little sound effect of the choir because I'm about to bring up he who must be exalted's name. Masada Yub often says, and there's supposed to be a sound effect that goes,
"Ah." We can all do
We
that.
can do it together.
Masada Yub often says there's a lawyer attached to every bullet that leaves your gun. And I hate to say this, but we have to individually be responsible for every single round that leaves our firearm. And this may be the lady that introduced this is a Democrat. I hate to say I agree with the Democrat. However, if you're not going to be responsible, somebody's got to make you be responsible.
Right. And this bill does actually address irresponsibility versus, well, this person's irresponsible, so nobody can shoot in their backyard. Nobody can shoot on their own property. This is, don't be a dumbass. Pardon the language, but
that's how they name.
Don't be an idiot.
Name it that.
I agree, but no, I mean this is one of the most basic, one of the most fundamental firearm rules. The 4 rules: know what your target and what's beyond it.
Yes.
Well, if what's beyond it is 300 yards of open field, don't shoot.
Well, I have a friend of mine.
Go, John.
I was going to say, you had talked about a berm, and I had a friend that was shooting in his backyard. I'm in the mountains. He was shooting into a hill, but it must have hit a rock. It went up and over the hill and hit a windshield. Probably maybe a mile away.
And I would have thought that was enough.
I mean,
what just happened?
You're still there, Tom. Somebody froze up a little. Let me get to some comments. Let me intersperse this in there. Kevin Sona, who is from Florida, says we already have laws on this, and he posts a link to a law. I don't have the ability to click on it and bring it up and read it, and honestly, I don't read that fast anymore. So, yeah.
And many states, that's what they have is, so they won't tell you how to build a range. They won't tell you how to build a berm. They won't tell you how to build a backstop, but they will say that if it's successful in keeping the bullets in your area, then it's successful. And if it's not, then it is not successful. And thus it is not a credible range. And so there are already stuff there. So it's kind of, I mean, I think you're right, Tom, with the don't be a dumbass regulation. It's just that when you start to tie punitive damages to it, kind of, I think it's a good idea that's going to go very, very wrong. I think.
Yeah, every law has unintended consequences, and there's going to be somebody who tries to do everything right, like John's friend. I would think shooting into a mountain would be fine. If someone's like, "Well, yeah, that's my backyard range," I would go, "Okay, well, if it goes through a mountain, you're shooting way too much. Your loads are way too hot, buddy."
I have a story for this because, like John's, my father lived across the street from a sand pit that then got turned into a range for the county police and the state police. And so all the police use this range. But it literally is that they're 30 or 40 feet below the road surface is where they're in this pocket shooting. And so somebody took it up. They decided that shooting from the supine position was a great idea. And they shot over the backstop through my dad's front door, across the foyer and into the closet before it came to a stop. And so the front door bit the biscuit, the closet door bit the biscuit, and laying inside was a spent 9mm. So it's an amazing range if everything goes right and somebody doesn't have a brilliant idea.
All right.
Don't be a dumbass.
Yes, don't be a dumbass. Now, I'm going to say if being a dumbass were a felony, I'd have gotten 3 life sentences between the ages of 18 and 25. So,
no.
We all probably would.
we are apparently we fell off of we froze up and we are frozen on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. And I'm trying to get everything back up again. Give me a second.
Yeah, so somebody messaged me, and they when John froze up, or they froze up when John was speaking about getting shot at the windshield.
Let me see here. Destinations. All right, and let me make sure that I think we all should be live again now. Just got a couple minutes more with Tom Knighton here. Tom, I want to ask you real quick, anything coming up that you can kind of pull the curtain back, let us know what's going on, and anything coming up on Bearing Arms from Tom?
Oh, yeah, I got a fun one tomorrow. I've got a broke later part of today. A school went on lockdown over what they referred to as AR-15 magazine bag. They just found a bag. There was no ammunition in it. There were no magazines in it. It was just an empty bag. And they locked down schools and, searched kids as they left. And they made a big to-do because everyone wets their pants at anything that looks like it might have something to do with the firearm industry. I've also got an editorial out of...
What's an AR-15 bag look like? Describe that to us.
That's an excellent question that I will be discussing because damned if I know. But they said it was an empty bag. There was no ammunition. There was no magazines. And I'm like, then it was just a bag. Even if it was one designed to hold magazines... Because I did a search of that particular string, and I got all kinds of different things from magazine pouches to bags for like taking just basically camouflage duffel bags for throwing magazines in to take them to the range. So, it's like, this isn't real descriptive, but the fact remains that it was still no magazine, no ammunition, nothing at all to suggest a threat, except it was something that was apparently someone identified as adjacent to the firearm industry. In fact, the kid who brought it to school came forward and said, yeah, that's mine. What? No, it wasn't a threat or anything like that. It's one of these cases of
a logo lunch
so
bag.
paranoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is it,
possible? Yeah.
Is it possible it was...
There's no pictures of it available yet.
Of course, shocking, right?
Yeah.
Does it look like sort of a tactical bag that somebody would carry with a place for a patch and all those little, binding things on it and side pockets? Right?
I just pulled it up and it looks like what Amanda said. It looks like a lunch bag, but inside there's little spots for our magazine. But I don't know if that's... I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff, like you said, that pulls up.
Yeah, and it's like, even if it is something like that, that's not the only thing you can be used for. Even though it's designed for that, kid can grab his bag from his dad for whatever, put whatever in it, not even think about it like that. And it's just,
Right.
I get that you've got to be cautious in this day and age, but folks, schools need to exercise a little, common sense.
That's
ultimately it's just a bag.
very rare in schools these days.
It's not so
It qualifies as a superpower.
I'm going to put this.
Alf's got a good one.
I'm going to put this comment up as well without any comment. I'm just going to leave that up there for a few seconds because, ouch.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's mean. Another one I've got for tomorrow is an editorial out of Maine. I'm trying to move past that one. But an editorial out of Maine that refers to Angus King's Go Safe Act as a modest proposal.
Yeah, right.
Oh. Okay.
Really?
Really?
Right. It's not a magazine ban because we're not banning magazines. We're banning guns that have magazines.
Yeah, and we're not telling you what you can and can't have. We're just going to restrict what they can make. And, if you already have one of those, you can't sell it or buy it from another person or anything like that. But, totally not an assault weapon ban at all.
All right.
Yeah, well, I think it was, who was it who did a modest proposal and it was like eating kids back in the day?
Clarence Thomas is going to reach into the back seat and he's going to slap the silly out of some of these people when he says, "Don't make me stop this car." That's where we're going.
Right?
A modest proposal, Jonathan Swift.
Yes. And when I saw a modest proposal, that's exactly where my head went.
All right, Tom, we are plumb out of time. I've kept you a lot longer than I told you I would, but if you would please plug, where can people get your stuff and anything else you want to plug today?
Best place to get me for Second Amendment stuff is, obviously Bearing Arms. For some non-Second Amendment stuff, you can find me at tomknighton.substack.com. It's called Tilting at Windmills. So come check that out.
And I will say you got to check that out simply because the stupidity in the firearms world isn't limited to the firearms world. It's also a lot in higher education and a lot of other places Tom writes about on his Substack. So please do go check that out. We are going to step aside to break. When we come back, we've got our news segment. We'll get to that right after we hear from the Complete Combatant. Right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. It is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast. And let's see here. No disclaimers for news, but and also if you're expecting us to be out of here in 1 hour, I'm not getting news and DGUs and show wrap done in 4 minutes. So sorry, you're going to have to hang out longer. And to my staff, sorry I'm keeping you longer, but it's the last one for at least a while. So Charlie, you've got our first story. You want to talk about this one, man?
Yes, this is a prohibition on young adults purchasing firearms from FFLs is ruled unconstitutional. This is a John Crump story from Ammoland. A federal district court judge from the Northern District of West Virginia ruled that banning 18 to 20-year-olds from buying handguns from federal firearms licensees is unconstitutional. The case, Brown versus the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, was filed in September of 2022 by two West Virginia citizens named Stephen Brown and Benjamin Weekly, the Second Amendment Foundation, and the West Virginia Citizens Defense League. Both men are under 21 years old and want to buy handguns and handgun ammunition from FFLs. The current law prevents anyone from under the age of 21 from buying handguns from FFLs. Although there is no federal law blocking 18 to 20-year-olds from buying handguns, current regulations stop anyone under 21 from going through the National Instant Check background system for a handgun. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, John, you're up in show notes with a comment. What you got, man?
Yeah, the Gun Control Act of 68 does say that an FFL cannot sell a handgun to those who are under 21. So, yeah, that would be a law. However, there is nothing in the law that says that those under 21 can't possess a handgun, nor does it say they can't buy them privately. And I know there was a very similar case in Virginia where I think the guy brought it on his own and actually won. And there have also been similar cases in Texas. So this is being hit. You're eligible to vote? You should be eligible to purchase a handgun or a long gun, depending on the state.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've covered this a lot of times here. You, at the age of 18, you can join the military, fight, and possibly die for your country. You can enter contracts. You can do a lot of other things, including messing up your life by getting married to the wrong person. Why can't you buy a firearm and protect that life?
Okay, so let's talk Bruin. History, text, and tradition. 1791. In 1791, little Johnny had a gun to go out to shoot something to bring it home to feed his family. So there is not anything about history, text, and tradition that says that 21 is the magic number or 18 is the magic number. The United States is probably not ready to peel back from something less than 18, but I firmly believe that what they're going to do is they're going to pull this back to states' rights. And they will pull it back to where each state draws the line for majority. Where are you deemed an adult? In Ohio, it's 18. In Texas, it's 17. I think that's where that's going to be where this ends up. And then from there, it's going to be your parents' decision as to whether or not they allow you at 12 or 14 years old to go buy a gun.
To continue on with what Amanda just said about 1791, when they enacted the Militia Act of 1791, 1792, the bottom age was 17.
Okay. There you go. So it's just gonna be pretty darned interesting to see where that is. I know when Ohio drew their unofficial militia, it's 17 to 67, because once you reach 67, you're more than decrepit and incapable.
Well, maybe.
Wait.
I'm closer to that than.
No, I know. I'm creeping up to that number. I'm like, what? But
I'm less than half a year away.
Oh, so I just look at what your state says for official and unofficial militia, but mine is 17 to 67. I'm like, ouch.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm much closer to 67 than I am 17. So, anyway, next story. Let me get into this one here, and this good segue because this is an Ohio story. An Ohio court has shot down Columbus's efforts to save lives siding with gun rights advocates to rule the city can't require firearms owners to lock their guns up to prevent children from assessing them. Ohio's 5th District Court of Appeals dismissed the city's request to overturn a Delaware County judge's decision, which granted the conservative think tank, the Buckeye Institute, a preliminary injunction against the municipality's ordinance. In basic English, this means the judge denied lifting a freeze on the law and sided with gun rights advocates who said Columbus can't make their own safety regulations. This is exasperating for the Columbus City Attorney, Zach Klein. In January, a small child survived after shooting a gun inside his home in Columbus. He found the gun between two couch cushions. Klein charged the father under the new safe storage law. That is such a tragic and preventable situation, but there needs to be accountability for individuals who leave their guns in a couch cushion, Klein told WEWS/OCJ. The city requires gun owners to lock up their guns around children when they aren't using them and ban magazines that can hold 30 rounds or more of ammunition. We've been trying to pass some common sense gun laws to get guns out of the hands of violent individuals, the attorney added. I'm going to say this to Mr. Klein. Do you think if this guy wasn't going to comply no matter what the law was? I'm thinking he was wearing a lot of blue or a lot of red when he went out in public, and I don't think he's going to give a rat's about your laws. He's going to do what the heck he likes. So, again, if being a dumb ass was a felony, this guy would have gotten a lot of them as well. You can't. There's just some things. If you're going to be dumb, it's going to hurt, and this one hurt, and that's part of life. Charlie, what do you think? Amanda, go.
Let me tackle one piece of this, and then I'll toss it to everybody else. In 2004, when Ohio passed their concealed carry, they had a patchwork of laws and regulations all over the state, and they passed preemption. So it says that no municipalities shall pass something that's more stringent than the overall state. And in that preemption, they also said that that if someone decides to try to do this, they have to pay the legal fees for both sides when they lose. And so it is cost. Cleveland's done it about 3 times, maybe 4 times. It's cost them somewhere north of $4 million. Cincinnati tried it, and now this is Columbus's second go round. So no matter what the rest of this says, preemption should have shut this down with the first judge, but we had an activist judge, and that's why it had to go to the next level of court.
I'll get to you in a second, Charlie. John, you've got a comment that goes right into that. Oh, and John, you're muted.
I am muted. Sorry. I didn't want to cough on air. I know Columbus has been fighting state preemption for a very long time, but as a non-Ohioan, I'm actually surprised that you're not seeing more coming out of Cleveland, but from what Amanda said, it looks like they have been active along with Cincinnati, like the Sea City, so to speak.
And losing. Yeah.
All right, Charlie.
So to me, this sounds a little bit like the Florida story as far as people being responsible on their property or in their homes. And not all gun owners are created equally. So some people are more responsible and some people are less responsible. There can be all the laws for storage and requirements for, the plastic cases with padlocks aren't okay. You've got to get a stack-on safe, and stack-on safes aren't safe. So you got to get you've got to get a big Liberty safe or whatever. There's no way to enforce these laws unless you go into people's homes and check and see what they have. It's very irresponsible for this guy to have done this, to left the gun in between the couch, but it was in his house. So what are you going to do about this? How are they going to know unless they go in people's houses and check and make sure you're keeping all your firearms locked and secured as far as the state's concerned?
Yeah, and like I said, you can outlaw being a dumb jerk all you want. People are going to be dumb jerks. I've been a dumb jerk in the past. I'll freely admit I've done things I am absolutely not proud of. Not going over what they were on the air, but I've done things that if they were to come to light, I would be totally embarrassed about. So
Yeah, save that for the post show, Paul.
Yeah.
Going on from what Charlie said is that most states will have a general negligence law. You don't need a specific law, saying that you have to lock up the gun. I mean, was this parent negligent? Yes. Can you be prosecuted for being negligent? Yes. Do we need a special law that says that if you leave a gun, especially if you leave a gun and it's unlocked, that you're negligent? Not necessarily.
No.
You were just negligent to begin with.
No, because now you're double secret negligent because it was a gun,
Exactly.
not a car or a knife or a machete or a flamethrower or, gasoline and a lighter,
You left your car keys on the counter.
It's ultimately your responsibility to be a responsible gun owner. I mean, wake up, right? If you have kids in the house, lock it up. I mean, come on, right?
Or a
That's
responsible
what it comes down
adult. You
to.
don't give the 6-year-old the keys to the car.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't leave your drugs hanging out. You make sure. I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about, your medication.
Sure you are.
Back up.
Leave your weed everywhere.
Don't leave your weed out.
Well, does Massachusetts have
medication.
does Massachusetts have recreational use now? I mean,
Yes, we do.
We have, yes, but federally, it's a whole different ballgame.
All right.
There was a kid, oh my God, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, I think it was. There was a 7-year-old kid in Dorchester, which is a crappy part of Boston, that was found a gun and shot himself. And everyone was we need more gun laws. Parents should be responsible and all this sort of stuff. And part of me is like, I'm going to say that this person didn't have the gun legally. So they're not going to keep it locked and secured legally because they don't have it legally. So it's kind of on the parents for being responsible.
Right, but
Once
it's
you break
also
one law, how many more laws are you talking about? So,
But
sorry, Carrie Ann.
It also comes no, and it's all right. Charlie just made me think of something too, because the Massachusetts was supposed to do PSAs, public service announcements, in 2014, and they never did nothing. And honestly, this is not just about gun ownership; it's about everybody knowing the rules. So if we all knew the rules, meaning if you have a gun in the house, it's got to be locked up. If you did find a gun, this is what you do. You stop. Don't touch, run away, tell an adult, point it in a safe direction, keep your finger off the trigger. I mean, all these rules and all these regulations, if we just taught that in general to society, to our communities, we would have safer communities altogether.
But that would require actual common sense. It would require accepting that the gun is not the enemy. That would require accepting that people have a right to own a gun and teaching them the best practice for using that firearm and for storing that firearm. And they're not about that. They're just about making it evil.
Right. And they have a privilege to drive a car, but yet they still text and drive. Right. It just makes no sense to me. So
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to get a couple comments in. We'll get to our next story. Kevin Sona says, laws only stop reasonable people. And Gun Website says, People teach kids not to do dangerous things, but guns are special, and teaching how to safely behave around a gun is criminally withheld from most public education in an attempt to create fear of guns. Pete, you nailed it. That's exactly. He said it more succinctly than I could. That's perfect.
Oh, that's a preach it moment. Yes, exactly.
Yep. I mean, I went to the schools. I tried to do the refuse to be a victim, and as soon as I said NRA, not refuse, Eddie the Eagle, that was it. Conversation over.
Yeah.
Those are nasty letters.
Nasty.
All right, let's get to our final story here. New Mexico's governor is never-ending emergency on guns. This is a Cam Edwards story off Bearing Arms. When Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham declared a public health emergency due to gun violence back in September, she made a lot of noise about the order being temporary. In fact, that was one of the main arguments deployed in her attempt to keep her ban on concealed carry in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County in place. Grisham's attorney failed to convince a U.S. District Court judge that a total ban on lawful carrying comported with the Constitution, even temporarily, but the judge did allow for the governor's revised order prohibiting concealed carry in parks and playgrounds in the city and county to be enforced while the lawsuit against her order continues. The litigation is still ongoing, and as it turns out, so is the governor's temporary declaration. After renewing her public health order in October and November, the governor has once again declared the carry ban will remain in effect at least through the end of the year. There's nothing so permanent as a temporary tax, or in this case, a temporary health emergency. This is forever and ever, amen, unless the courts do something to reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
All right.
So I don't think any of us have a lot to say about this because we just think she's wrong. Wrong.
Well, the only thing I'd have to say is what has happened. I don't think New Mexico has been Californicated. I think it's just indigenous wackos. No offense.
Fornicated.
To good New Mexicans.
I have never heard Californicated, but I love it.
Isn't that a song?
Californication by the Chili Peppers, yeah.
Yes.
Californication.
Right, it's got to be the heat, right? Like, this is what makes these people crazy?
I thought it was
green chilies.
seawater.
There's no seas over there, Amanda.
What?
That was my explanation for California, but New Mexico doesn't touch the ocean.
Mexico, it's the heat.
It's the
California.
All the nuclear testing that happened there in the 50s. The effects are starting to come around now.
Right. Yeah. It's the Roswell effect, right?
Right.
I have a story about that, but we'll say that for later.
All right.
This is the last show. There is no later.
Okay.
Oh, it's not the last show. It's on hold.
Have
you ever seen how an F-111 can dump fuel and then you fire the afterburner and light it? Do you know what I'm talking about? An F-111 fighter bomber has a way to dump fuel. They can light the afterburner, and then you have a 200-foot flame.
Nice.
Well, my brother-in-law may or may not, when he was flying an EF-111 at low level over New Mexico in training, done that a few times. Where
was that
near Roswell, whatever,
Is there video of this somewhere that we can see?
Yeah, you can go to YouTube. They do it all the time in Australia, on Australia Day, whatever, in Sydney. You can see that just flame coming out of the back of an F-111.
That would also explain why Australia has some of the rules and regulations they have down there.
Yeah.
You get too close to the crowd, light that thing off, and cook some brains. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. Let me get. I want to. There's a train here I got to follow. I got to find the beginning of it. Let me start here. Pete over at Guns website says we have to type within 250 characters in these comments, so YouTube forces brevity. And then, where is it? Jesus Wins, Bird of Michigan says, save space, omit spaces between words. And he also says, out of control, y'all need to simmer. So, okay.
M.A.
Simmer.
I don't think these are more than 250 characters. They can put his face in there.
And gun websites, I got to go after the show. I got to go look at this. Dump and Burn F111, and he gives the YouTube address. So
Okay.
I'll have to go check that out if we go dark.
Thanks, G-Webs.
All right. What we're gonna do now? We're gonna go ahead and go to our. I'm gonna make this our final break. We're gonna go do GGUs when we come back, and we will start the process of shutting the show down. We're at 8:18 at a show that I was hoping would end somewhere between 8:30 and 9. We're still gonna see if we can get that so we can wrap up by 9 p.m. Central Time, because I got to get to work tonight. Folks, we're going to step aside to our final break right now. When we come back, we'll have DGUs. Hang on right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. We are getting so many comments in. I've tried getting a few in while we're on break, just putting them up on the screen. But this is our defensive gun use segment, as I have 685 times before this. I'll do it number 686 now. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Our first DGU is up out of Hollywood Hills, California. $1.7 million mansion with a home worth that much. Many would think security would not be left up to the homeowner. However, Beatrice D'Alba, 59, is a hairstylist who has worked in Hollywood with the Hollywood elite on movies such as National Treasure, The Hunger Games, and Frida. In fact, she won an Oscar and a BAFTA award for her work with Selma Hayek on Frida. As a man tried to break into her home, she retrieved a weapon after repeatedly telling him to leave. She was claiming to fear for her life, and as he attempted to force his way into the home, she shot him. Miss D'Alba's husband called the police to report the shooting in their three-bedroom home. Police found the man suffering from a gunshot wound, but conscious and breathing. He was transported to a hospital. Miss D'Alba was detained by police and released. She had been the victim of a home invasion attempt in the past. The shooting comes as law enforcement community has warned about the new controversial zero bail policy, which went into effect earlier this month. A person's bail amount was previously based on the severity of the allegations against them, but critics argued that benefited those who could pay. Officially known as the pre-arraignment release protocols, the zero bail, doggone it, I was doing so good. The zero bail policy has been slammed by cops who believe it will undermine crime fighting. Zero bail was first introduced to combat overcrowding in the city's jails during the pandemic, but expired last summer. Not a whole lot to go on this one, but John, you're working on a comment in show notes. What you got, man?
Well, we talked about the cost of our house being $1.7 million. In California, depending on the neighborhood, it doesn't buy a house like it used to. Now it could just be your average suburban ranch house.
Oh yeah, even I was just thinking it says a 3-bedroom house, and 3-bedroom house, 1.7 million. You only need to get in Sioux Falls. You only need to get up to a 6 or 7-bedroom house, and you're approaching $1 million. So 1.7, California, Hollywood Hills,
10 bedrooms in Sioux Falls for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I got on this one. You shouldn't have to retrieve at any point. You shouldn't have to retrieve a firearm. Even in California, even in Hollywood Hills, California, the Heller decision says you've got the right to carry inside your house. Carry, please. Let's see here. Charlie, you got something?
Yeah, I mean this is good news from California. It doesn't say whether or not she had a license to possess the firearm, but let's hope that she did, so that she could have the gun lawfully and stuff. But good on her for she hit her target. She had a gun. Could have had it a little closer, but that's all right.
Hey Charlie, in free America, we don't have to have a license to own a firearm. I'm just going to say no FOID card, no FID card, none of that stuff. And then when you add constitutional carry to it, you don't even have to have one to take it for a walk.
Well, this is California.
I got to get this one in. Pete over at Gun Website. So if I get a big enough truck and drag this house over to California, it'll be worth at least $1 million. Well, yeah, and I got to tell you, man, if you need advice on getting a truck, I know a few people. Just saying. So there are trucks that'll get it there. It might cost you more than it would.
You need some land to put it on, though.
Yeah. And moving the house is not, I know people that'll get it there, but they don't do it for free. Charlie, this next one, you've got your name on it. It's a little closer to you.
All right. So from the West Coast to the East Coast, this is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A 28-year-old robber entered the Happy Day food market, partially masked and wearing gloves, armed with a handgun. One of the employees was also armed and pulled his, he immediately went behind the counter and started taking money from the cash to fill his pockets. One of the employees, also armed, pulled his gun out while the robber was busy stuffing his pockets and shot him several times. There were other employees as well as at least one customer who was in the store at the time, and there were no injuries reported. The criminal was found by the police behind the counter with no signs of life. The local Fox reporter talked to other employees who said the employee that had gotten his gun license received training in how to shoot after a previous robbery of the store. The two other employees and customers were taken to police headquarters to be interviewed. Both guns involved were recovered by the police. Police say the shooting appears to be self-defense.
All right. I'm going to jump in first on this one. A couple months ago, we had a DGU. This one, I want to say, was down in the Tennessee area, maybe near Mogadishu on the Mississippi. But the guy starts to rob a gas station. He was partially masked as well. He had women's underwear over his face. I'm just wondering if partially masked, if this was the same kind of bad guy here, partially masked. He just put some ladies' undergarments and kind of went and did his thing.
Do you look through the leg holes? What? Oh, what? I don't get that. I am way too old.
Well, let's hope they were a fresh pair.
Way too old.
Yeah.
Carrie Ann's like, I'm out.
I got nothing.
Sorry, my daughter came in the room.
Good timing.
John,
Good timing.
you're in show notes. Do you want to add to this mess?
Yeah, and this is no pun intended, of course, but it was a happy day, indeed, as the good guys won.
Yes.
At the Happy Day Food Market.
Exactly.
You know, and it couldn't have been a Piggly Wiggly or a Kroger or anything like that.
Wawa.
Yeah, a Wawa.
Wawa.
You know the
Wawa.
Wawa now serves the Wawa. The Wawa now serves pizza.
Okay, all right.
Big Yang.
Well, let's do this. While we still got some people watching us live, we're going to go ahead and move on to the final segment of the show here. Normally, I would ask Rob what's been going on over at Slowfax. Rob could not be here tonight, and so I'm going to encourage everybody, do go check out his blog, slowfax.wordpress.com, and just about anywhere else that picks up Second Amendment news stories, they'll grab Rob's stuff from time to time. But, John, what's been going on over at your Only Guns and Money blog?
Well, let me start with the NRA news and go from there. First, all 4 petition candidates, Phil Journey, Rocky Marshall, Jeff Knox, and Dennis Fusero, will be on the ballot for 2024. Next, the trial in New York starts on January 8th, with jury selection beginning January 2nd. And I've got to say, I'm still bewildered why the NRA would want a jury trial in the liberal stronghold of Manhattan. Finally, Rocky Marshall provided me with an updated analysis excuse me, of the NRA's finances, and they're not good. Revenue continues down, and expenses, especially those for legal expenses, are increased. Moving on, Rim Arms is consolidating all Remington production in their state-of-art plant in LaGrange, Georgia. The Ilion plant is just too old, and New York politics are too toxic to remain there. Just one second. Sorry about that. Finally, a mob attacked a 14-year-old student in a Raleigh, North Carolina high school. The victim fought back and is now charged with murder. One of the attackers was killed. Another attacker is in the hospital. He had somehow, somewhere, this 14-year-old obtained a knife. Andrew Branca has analyzed the case and concluded it was clearly self-defense. I hope the victim has a good lawyer with the knowledge of self-defense law. And though the school was, quote, an academic magnet, this school had the highest level of violence in the school district. That and a whole lot more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right. And Amanda, is there anything you have coming out or has come out or that you just flat want to promote that you're doing?
So, no, just tune in to Eye on the Target Radio on Sunday nights from 5 to 7 p.m. And I'm there. That's it.
All right.
You live a boring life.
No.
Yeah, right. I don't think so.
No. Carrie Ann, Sister in Arms, a firearm story. What's been going on there? Anything else you want to promote?
We did our first season, so we ended our first season. We're starting our second, so I'm very excited about that. We have had some amazing guests join us, and we are not done. So check us out on YouTube. So Sisters in Arms, a firearm story. Also, if you are living in Massachusetts, you might want to go to Gun Owners Action League and check out their website as well, and check out the bill that is going on here in Massachusetts, because we need all the help we can get. So, thank you.
All right. Charlie, writing shotgun with Charlie, Charlie's Gungrams, whatever you want to plug, bud, here's your chance.
All right, so the last Armed Lifestyle magazine came out a couple weeks ago, and I released the video interview with Sarah Joy Albrecht from Hold My Gun, so that's on the Riding Shotgun YouTube channel. Tomorrow, I have episode 186 dropping. Jim Irvine from Faster Saves Lives is my passenger on the show tomorrow. And on Wednesday, December 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Matt Mallory and I are going to be talking with Yehuda Reamer about his new book, Spot Gilly. And we have a lot of friends that are up for Gundy Awards. So if you haven't registered for that, please scroll through there and support a lot of our friends. I got myself in a heap of trouble by posting one of the people that is up for an award, and then another person got mad because they're up for an award, and I didn't post something about them. And then legit, all of a sudden, Yehuda writes in, he says, "And the Pew Pew Jew has entered the room." So I'm like, oh, here we go. So that's what I've got going on.
All right. Brent Amsden says, amazing guests and Charlie.
And Charlie.
How many times do I have to say this? These are my friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we are.
All right, that brings it to me, and I want to say, I honestly don't think this is the end. I can never say absolutely for certain, but while we are live on the air and still recording for release on podcast, I want to say I honestly don't believe this is the end. Yes, I'm going on break for a while. However, I do have a lot of people at this point. I was thinking about this earlier today. I got to thank some people. First is somebody who I don't know if he's watching now or not. He could be. We still interact from time to time. Mark Vanderberg, who ran the now defunct Gun Rights Radio Network, and Chaz Murray, who ran the Road Gunner podcast. Two of the people who were influential in getting me into podcasting before live video was ever even an option. They got me into podcasting. And some of the early people that helped me out, specifically, and I gotta make out a special thanks here to Kathy Jackson, who was gracious enough not only to become almost a weekly guest, almost a co-host on the show. She came on every week for a very long time and took a guy who was an absolute newbie into handgun and self-defense world. When I started what would become the Polite Society podcast, what was then the Politics and Guns podcast, I knew rifles. I knew shotguns some, but I knew rifles, and that was about all I knew. I knew hunting, and I believed in Second Amendment rights. Kathy took me by the hand and taught me about self-defense. Long before she ever came up to Sioux Falls and taught a cornered cat class that I was a part of, she came on the show a lot of times and taught me, and taught it through vicariously by teaching a lot of listeners about self-defense at the same time. Everybody who's come on the show, I need to thank them, but quite literally at 686 shows, There have been, I'm going to be guessing, north of 800 guests because in the first shows, it was all audio. We didn't care how long it went. A 3-hour show, no big deal. No kidding. So we had 2-3 guests on per show. No big deal. That was just the way we did it. I come from being a truck driver, and I was hoping for a 3-hour podcast because that would eat up a lot of my drive time. Innumerable guests that have been on the show. I want to thank everybody who's appeared on the show. I want to thank the Firearms Policy Coalition, who came on board several years ago. This little tiny podcast that was growing, and they saw a future in Firearms Policy. Brandon Combs, the people over at Firearms Policy Coalition, said, we want to back this show. Second Amendment Foundation. When there might not have been, for the past 3 years, there might not have been a Polite Society podcast without the Second Amendment Foundation. I owe a lot, a whole lot to Alan Gottlieb and the folks there. You will never, ever, ever hear me say a bad word about them. It's just not in me to do it. And I need to thank my wife, Susan. This one may take me a little bit to get out. I started Polite Society. I went to her and I said, sweetheart, I know times are tough. I want to do this thing. It'll cost us about $20 a month. And that's what hosting costs. She went ahead and jumped in, and she didn't jump out when she heard what all the equipment was going to cost. As I sit here looking around at tens of thousands of dollars of equipment, most of which I never had to pay for. She has backed me hell and high water. And when I have previously thought about bailing, before Firearms Policy Coalition, before SAF, Susan was there to say, you've got something special, you hang on to it. And I did. And I normally do this at the very end. We'll repeat it here in a second, but I've got to thank everybody who's come on the air and been a co-host with me. Amy Dillon, Dana, who writes up our show notes, Gary, Raquel Okiai, Rachel Malone, Toby and Sticks, Belle McCormick, down in Texas, Kat Stevens, also down in Texas, Tracy Thronberg, Grant up in the Northeast, Charlie Foxtrot, who used to live in the St. Louis area. He now lives down in Florida. Great friend of the show, wrote nudes and DGUs for us for a long time. John, my friend, who's been with me for a very long time. Amanda, who came along when I thought she never, ever, ever, ever would. She's got way too much on her plate. She's going places, and Amanda came on and has been with me for several years now. Robin Sandoval of A Girl and a Gun. Charlie Cook, who has done way more for me than he will ever know. Carrie Ann, you've been recent to the show, but you've stuck with us. And of course, Rob Morse, who has been with me, the team I have now. Rob Morse has been with me the longest, and is I'm not kidding when I say, when you want to talk to the smartest guy in the room, you talk to Rob Morse. I don't care what room you're in. I was hoping I wouldn't get all emotional. All right, I can't even go look at comments For
I'm going
those
to
you
say
watched,
you're crying, we're crying. That's how this is going, dude.
for those of you live viewers, dude, everybody, you make my life easier by commenting. Thank you for doing that. I cannot get comments in right now. It hurts. Thank you, live viewers. Thank you, podcast listeners. I really hope this isn't the end.
It's not.
That does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Tom Knighton for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Gary, Rachel, Toby, Sticks, Belle, Kat, Tracy, Raquel, Grant, Charlie Foxtrot, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Yes.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
Be aware.
And we will see you down the road. And we will.
Absolutely. Oh, we love you. Thank you for everything.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.